Why North Bay? Why today?
Listen, I have a standing rule about trying not to travel on weekends, but during the week, if I can get out of Ottawa and come and help out some local riding associations and meet people. I was in Sudbury last night actually for a totally non-political event supporting a local First Nations scholarship project. And if I'm going to come to Sudbury, I'm more than happy to come over to Big Bad Bay and spend a little time here. I spent a great morning with my friend Anthony Rhoda at Algonquin High School, giving a speech to the young people there. We're doing a little meeting with some Liberals this afternoon. This evening, this afternoon, I'm meeting with a number of different people. It's basically part of what the Liberal Party is challenged to do these days, which is get out there and reconnect with people and make people understand that there is an alternative out there.
And Justin, what are you hearing in terms with robocalls? Nipissing is one of the districts. It's a tight race with Conservatives coming through. What are you hearing here from people and their concern?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's important to underline the fact that the issue isn't robocalls. The issue is electoral fraud. It's not whether there was a recorded voice calling them or not that is the issue. The issue is there are people who called them up, asked if they were Conservative supporters, and if they said no, they then received a call on election day telling them that their polling station had been moved to across town to a place that is inaccessible or more difficult to access. That is a criminal interference of someone's right to vote, and it has very, very heavy consequences. Now, whether or not there is a grand machination behind it, or whether it was a handful of rogue operatives for one political party remains to be seen. But a lot of people are very, very much concerned about the state of our democracy, the kinds of message that we're giving about how we are governed, how we choose to be represented, and a lot of people have some tough questions for the government currently in power.
How do you feel about the government axing Katimavik?
Listen, one of the things that we've seen over the past while is that this government has consistently brushed aside its concerns on students and young people. To cut a program that puts young people to work across the country 35 hours a week in community-driven projects while they themselves grow and learn and become more active, engaged citizens is complete nonsense to me. I mean, it can only be justified on a very purely partisan, vindictive basis. To say, this was a program that was created by Liberals, and therefore, even though it's about putting young people to work, which Conservatives are supposed to like, we're not going to do it. A telling contrast is the fact that they cut a $14 million program, Katimavik, because they found that it was too expensive. Now, Katimavik costs about $2,000 a month per participant, which, is a fair chunk of change. But when you think about the 35 hours a week of volunteer service they put in for our most vulnerable citizens in small communities, I think it's justifiable. But you contrast that with the $200 million plus they're spending every year on the cadet program, which is also a great program that touches 50,000 young people. But if you do the math, for about a month of service in cadets, it costs $4,000, so twice as much as Katimavik. So any justification around the numbers doesn't hold. It is a purely, crassly partisan decision, hurting a Liberal-associated program and ignoring the needs of young people to discover how they can be leaders of today, not just leaders of tomorrow.
Talk about, Justin, what politicians should have learned from the whole what we call robocalls.
Well, I think one of the messages that people are quite frustrated about this electoral fraud and the state of our democracy in general is that people don't seem to be playing fairly. And if there's one thing that is very important for Canadians, it's that our system be fair, that our system be respectful of everyone else. And this situation certainly isn't. Whether you talk about the fact of this being an automatic contempt of the fact that we gave a majority government to the first government in the history of Westminster democracy, going back almost 800 years, the first time anyone's been held in contempt of Parliament as a sitting government. And we turned around and gave them a majority. So what Canadians told this government is, you know, the niceties of democracy we don't so much care about. And unfortunately, this party then chose, most likely, or individuals within the party were involved in potential electoral fraud. That's the kind of message you send when you get so cynical about politics and you think everyone's a crook, that you don't want to be part of it. Now, I think people are realizing that no, we should make sure that there is a good quality of person actually representing us, that the people who represent us in government or in opposition play by the rules, play fairly. And I think that's where so much of the outrage is coming from now. This idea that you know, maybe people aren't playing by the rules that are as basic as our democratic principles. There's real concern.
Give me an idea. Are you here today to sort of send a message to MP Jay Aspin that, you know, this issue is not over, and that because he has asked the court to, you know, turn a blind eye to the issue of the robocalls?
Actually, my visit here today has next to nothing to do, actually has nothing to do with the electoral fraud issues. My visit here is because I was overdue for a visit to beautiful North Bay and spend some time with Anthony Rhoda. You know, if I'd had my druthers, I'd be out on a canoe this afternoon, either here or up in the Temagami. It's not going to happen. I'm glad to be connecting with young people this morning, with people of all ages this afternoon and this evening. That's what this conversation is about. It's not so much about pointing fingers and threatening and trying to score points off of another party. It's very much about talking to Canadians and people here in Renfrew, Nipissing, Timiskaming, North Bay, whatever their riding's called these days. It's very much about talking to people about the kinds of expectations they can and should have about the government and about the people who wield power in their name.
What do you do to engage youth? I mean, that's part of what you're doing today.
Fundamentally, I have conversations with them that aren't based on partisan politics, left versus right. It's about answering their questions about where we're going on the environment, where we're going on the fight against poverty, where we're going on making sure there are jobs and a future for them, listening to their concerns, encouraging them to get involved in their community, in local initiatives. You know, not so worried about politics right now. Eventually, young people will run into politics when their organization runs up against municipal zoning laws or provincial regulations or even federal issues. You know, what the important thing for me is for young people to understand that they have power to weigh in and to make a difference and to shape the world around them with the tools they have right now, today, as incredibly informed but sometimes overwhelmed by the amount of information they get citizens.
Now, Justin, in your riding, it was where the torso this week was discovered. The others in Ottawa. For MPs, there's no cost for people to send stuff to the office. Is there any concern there of the fact there is no cost of what could be coming?
One of my great concerns around this issue is that whenever you have a security scare or evidence that there is a very, very small minority of some very sick people out there who do things like this, is that is going to encourage politicians and our political structures to create barriers between elected officials and citizens. If elected officials become less accessible to the public, either in person or through mail or whatever, I think that weakens us. One of the great things about this country is, you know, my father is, you know, once he retired, every day of his life he walked through downtown Montreal to work, you know, without any security ever. I mean, that's one of the great things about this country, and I'd hate for the kind of polarization we're going through right now to lead to more, you know, more issues around security. But this right here, I said from the very beginning, even before we knew that they had sent something to the Liberal Party, or this person had sent something to the Liberal Party, this is not about someone being upset with a certain policy or a certain trend even. This is the work of a very sick individual who is is trying to lash out for attention and shock people and get himself into the news, which he's gotten to do. This is not about any sort of political statement, and we should be just as disgusted by this as we would be by someone sending it to a bank or a pet shelter or any other location.
What's going to be your message, Justin, when you meet with local Liberals tonight?
The message that I have is that there is an extraordinary opportunity for the Liberal Party right now. The next 3 years are going to be an extremely exciting time for the Liberals, because right now we have two parties in the House, the government and the opposition, who are both led by very dominant, top-down, my way or the highway, dictatorial-style leaders. Both Thomas Mulcair, Stephen Harper, not particularly likable people in person, very much controlling in their message, who are both running very ideologically based parties, trying to move towards the center, but that have their grounding on the poles of politics. So very much the choice, and the choice that they're trying to make sure that people have, is you get to go either left or right. That serves them, but it doesn't serve Canada, because Canadians aren't polarized. We're a country of accommodations. We're a country of getting along, not despite our differences, but because of our differences, and being strong because of it. So what the Liberal Party is going to be doing over the next 4 years, or 3 years till the election, and something I'm very happy to be part of, regardless who becomes leader, is to be that alternative that says, you know what, we don't have to park ourselves in the east and vote against the oil sands, like Mulcair's doing, or park ourselves in the west and vote against Quebec and the seasonal EI on the east coast, but say, no, let's speak for all Canadians. Let's do so in a positive way that isn't about getting people to vote against something, but to vote for something. And the Liberal Party, the reason it's been so successful through so many years and been able to contribute so much to the history of this country, is because it refused to be pigeonholed as either left or right, and flowed on a strong core base of values as to where the country needed to go and what kinds of big decisions need to have. That is more needed than it's ever been in Canadian politics right now, and the Liberal Party is pretty close to a blank slate with which to rebuild that right now. So yes, it's tough having only 30 or so MPs in the House, but it gives us an extraordinary opportunity to do what I'm doing today, reconnect with people, talk about the great opportunity headed our way, and be very excited about the future of the Liberal Party of Canada.
And you're saying that you're not seeking the leadership this time around?
I have said many times, and I will repeat it again, I decided a year ago that I am not seeking the leadership this time around.
But it could be
in the future, perhaps.